Okay. We'll be having Dr. Nalima joining us soon. To those who have just joined us, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the August episode of the Family Dialogue. On behalf of ICON Enterprise Foundation, I would like to welcome each and every one of you and thank you for choosing to join us today. My name is Jemima Wabamunno, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's panel. I'm the current communications associate for ICON Enterprise Foundation as well. So without waiting too long, we have our panelists in, or most of our panelists, and we shall start shortly. Thank you so much. As we prepare for our panelists to all come in, I would like to ask the current panelists that are in to kindly switch on your cameras, not yet your mics, but kindly switch on your cameras. I'm pretty sure the people would love to see you. And of course, they're here for you. And they cannot wait to hear what you have to say. We are very honored to have on our panel today, Mr. Ronald Dungu, Dr. Emma Nalima, we have Elijah, and we have Tsate today on our panel. And for those who've just joined us, whether it's on the Zoom call or the Facebook Live, once again, welcome. My name is Jemima Wabamunno, and I shall be moderating today's panel. I'm the current communications associate with Icon Enterprise Foundation. And I'm so happy that you've chosen to join us today. You're most welcome. Our title for the series of this month is Family Food Security in a COVID-19 World, Positioning Agriculture for Food Security in Teachers' Families. Of course, hosted by Icon. All right. I can see we have all our panelists in. I'm so excited for everyone. Let's go ahead and start. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the August episode of the Family Dialogue once again. For those that have just joined us, on behalf of Icon, I would like to welcome each and every one of you, and thank you for choosing us today. Of course, you heard my name, Jemima Wabamuno. I shall be your moderator for today. Before we start, I would like to go over some courtesy rules. I shall mute everyone for the duration of the panelist presentation, and I'll only unmute for the discussion session at the end or question session at the end that will happen in the last 20 to 30 minutes. If for some reason your microphone isn't muted in the process, I request you act out of due diligence and mute it on your own to be respectful of the panelists and avoid any interruptions. And I would also kindly, of course, ask any new panelist that's just come in that does not have their camera on to please switch it on. If you are not a panelist, whether or not your video is on is up to you, as long as you are not disruptive and you allow the environment to be conducive for our panelists. For those in the Zoom, we are also live streaming on Facebook, so please send in comments, be it in here, in the chat here. For those watching on Facebook, do not hesitate to comment in the comment section and ask your questions there as well. We're paying close attention to everything you have to say. Our title for this month's series, once again, is Family Food Security in a COVID-19 World, Positioning Agriculture for Food Security in Teachers' Families, hosted by Icon Enterprise Foundation. Icon is a Ugandan nonprofit organization committed to reinstating the pivotal role that the family plays in fostering social cohesion and harmony, building children and people's innate leadership capacities, as well as equipping them with key life skills required to be both productive and engaged citizens. So today we want to provide students and teachers, parents, family stakeholders overall to have an opportunity to reflect on the different ways teachers' families and young families can use agriculture and farming to obtain food security. Okay, as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the families all over, their well-being and their sustenance in particular, without any preparation. Of course, as of April 2020, the countrywide lockdown measures prevented the rapid spread of the virus, yes, but disrupted food supply chains and impacting income earning opportunities that in turn would affect the food security of the people of Uganda. In rural areas, most households have access to own produced food, though access to income from agricultural labor opportunities has been affected. And so in this month's dialogue, we're dedicating it to food security in teachers' families and young families, as well as the various agricultural methods to achieve it. Opening this discussion for us is Dr. Emma Nalima. Dr. Nalima is a wife, a mother of 4, a smallholder farmer, and a private veterinarian focusing on clinical medicine and herd health. With a Bachelor of Science in Veterinary Medicine and Masters of Health Services Research from Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, she has managed to accomplish so much in such a short period of time. Dr. Nalima previously worked for the National Animal Genetic Resources Center and Data Bank, and as an officer in Entebbe in charge of livestock and environmental station. She has also worked for the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, on his personal dairy farm to improve the genetics of his herd through artificial insemination. Without further ado, Dr. Nalima, you're most welcome. Please switch on your microphone as well as your camera. Dr. Nalima?
Thank you, Jemima. Thank you, Jemima. Thank you.
Oh dear.
Everyone for this dialogue. And thanks to everyone who has tuned in. Now, what is in the generally means? Food is reliable, nutritious food that is affordable. So it doesn't matter whether we're in COVID, in the lockdown, or anywhere in the world or in life, you need to have food security. I'm just going to give you my personal approach and actually how I ended up being a farmer, how I ended up being whatever you've seen that you've talked about. Or you've said, I've achieved a lot in a short time. So in 2010, I get married and I give birth to premature twins. So after giving birth to premature twins, I needed to sit home and look after them. That meant I'm not bringing in money as a vet. And then it so happened my husband is a teacher by profession. And everyone knows what teachers are when it comes to the remunerations of their salaries. So it was quite hard to fend for ourselves. And remember, in Africa, especially Uganda, when you give birth to twins, or not even twins, when you give birth, the family just becomes large because auntie, uncle, everyone comes to say hello. Those who came from the other village stay over. So you need to feed everyone. So the cost of living was quite high. And then it meant we were having food from one person. We were being fended for by one person. And remember, I was eating food for 3 people, myself and the twins. So the fact that I'm seated home, I don't have enough food, you have visitors to look after, to give something, in Uganda, if someone comes to your home and you don't feed them, they'll never come back. So as much as you are having all these other problems, when someone comes, you have to give them at least a glass of water. So it was quite challenging. And I said to myself, wait a minute, I think the people who go, and then another thing, one of the reasons why I even started farming was another one on top of that, is that each time I went to the market, I found things very expensive. So there's this day I go to this market and I was buying a basket of tomatoes at 5,000. And then I go the next week, this lady says, it is 12,000. And I'm like, no, you can't be serious. She's like, the seasons have changed. So I'm like, but the seasons change in a week. So that time I wasn't a farmer. So I didn't know what happened. So all this, when I came home, I'm like, but the person selling the tomatoes is a human being like me. And the person who grows them is a human being like me. And I have this piece of land seated idle in my compound. So why don't I farm? And that's how I actually began farming. All I was doing was to make sure I have food on my table so that I can have food for my children and my family. And remember, what 60 to 70% of what we earn, we spend it on food. So it meant, since I wasn't earning money from my husband, from a vet practice, I needed to make sure we have food at home so that the other amount of money that we get from my husband's salary caters for the other things, like maybe Pampers and all, at least 70% we're going to spend. So I remember I actually said to myself, I'm not going to buy food for the next 9 months. And I planted matoke. So I planted a species of matoke that grows fast in 9 months. Matoke takes 9 to 12 months to grow, depending on which species. But I grew a species called Mpologoma so that it grows very fast. And then I start, but before I did that, I also, on the other piece of land that I had, I also got a piece like 10 decimals, and I grew sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes take 4 to 5 months. And I said, so we're going to take 4 to 5 months. We grow these sweet potatoes as I'm waiting for the 9 to 12 months for the matoke to grow. Now to date, I don't know the cost of matoke in terms of buying it. I know the cost when I'm selling it to you, but I don't know its cost when I'm buying it.
Wow.
So that's how I started farming. It was a necessity to put food on my table, to put nutritious, sufficient quantities of food on my table. So COVID or no COVID, all of us have to put food on our table, irrespective of what we do. And then, because of what we were doing, we ended up we opened a school called MST Junior School, which still teaches the same. It's math science, and it stands for math science and technology. But we teach the 3 things we think every African should know: time management, value of money, and the culture of saving, still through farming, because we believe farming is the greatest timekeeper. And remember, the backbone of Uganda is agriculture.
Indeed.
So whatever we do, wherever we go, even if you earn so much money, at the end of the day, we are going to have, we are going to be, somehow we shall end up farmers, or we shall end up in farming somewhere, somehow. So it is paramount, it is very important, or it's very paramount, that we start farming at an early age, at a tender time. And I know we are having difficulties in, COVID has really come at a time, it has given us challenges, but I thank God that it came, because it has woken us up. It has woken us up, and now we need to think and change our thinking. Even if you're a teacher, where do you, of course, where do you put your proceeds or your savings at the end of the day? Now, you see, teachers have not been paid. I think most teachers have not been paid since April, those who are lucky. There's some who have not, like in other schools, I was watching TV and someone was saying, this teacher, they've never been paid since November. So, but then they need to survive. So what are the teachers doing, or what have they been doing since March? What have they been doing since March? So the best option is to farm, so that they can fend for themselves, to fend for their families. And then they will sell the excess so that they can get more money as we wait for the lockdown to open.
Indeed. Indeed. Wow. That is so powerful. I know you mentioned obviously having a reason to start, and luckily now you don't really know the price of food on the other end, but of course having a reason to start and a reason to continue are 2 different things. Along the way, you know, you're probably new to the whole thing of farming whenever you first started, and like I said, you had a reason, but what was it that helped you keep going? So in spite of any challenges you might have faced, I'm not quite sure what challenges you faced specifically with the bananas, the matoke that you were speaking of, but what helped you keep going, and what did you learn along the way?
So what kept me going? I'm like, I gave birth, these children, the twins, no one sent me to give birth to the twins. So I needed to fend for them. And I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail them. So I needed to make sure that first of all, remember, they were premas. So I needed to think, I'm like, oh my God, you know, there's so many stories about premas. So I'm like, okay, I need to feed well myself, number one, so that I can feed them in terms of breastfeeding and all that. And then I was so scared. I'm like, okay, I didn't know if they would turn up to be, yes, you've seen, you read about it, but then this time it's you, it's just like COVID. We can say, oh, there's COVID here, but the moment it comes in your family, this is something different. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing. I'm like, okay, fine, I've read, I know they will survive, but then how was I going to make sure that they really survive? So that's what kept me going. And after a year or two, after seeing that I've actually managed to feed them, to look after them, And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I've been able to make my life or to fend for my family through farming, then it's possible. And that's actually why we started the school, to teach and also to give other people encouragement, to make sure that other people can do the same. If I've survived, I'm a vet. My husband is a teacher, but then we've survived. We've kind of left our frustrations to farm, and then we've made it in life. So we thought maybe this is the way to go. Let's continue. So it gave us a chance, and I kept thinking that I have to make sure things happen, and I needed to teach. I needed to show people that this can happen, and this is successful. This, if we do it right, we can be successful.
Indeed. Indeed, you mentioned that, of course, the reason why you opened the school is to be able to teach others, children, adults, their parents, along these quintessential lessons that you learned as well. But of course, you learned them through experience, failure, success, and so on and so forth. But how did you get introduced to farming? Who taught you? Was it a sort of trial and error? Was it hearsay? Was it books?
Oh, okay. Who taught me how to farm? You know, maybe nowadays, but remember, if when we're growing up, each time you go to your home, you go to your grandparents. And most grandparents have gardens. You wake up and then you go with your grandma with the hoe, you tag along with her on her gomesi or something, and they give you this very tiny hoe, and then you go with her. She's digging, but you're kind of literally playing, but you're learning. You are like seeing her. And then I was lucky to go to a primary school called Stella Maris Boarding Primary School in Sube. It's in Buyikwe now. That time it was in Bukono. So the district is now Buyikwe in Kokonjeru there. So this is a Catholic founded school run by the nuns. So, and then we used to dig. We used to dig well there, actually. We used to go to the garden on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I think. Yeah. Wednesday afternoon and Saturday morning. So we used to go to the gardens. And most of the things we ate came from the farm. We had banana, sugarcane, matoke, name it, sweet potatoes, cassava. So all this we came from the farm. So I was like, my childhood was from that. And you know, the two things make us, the family where you come from and the schools you go to. And remember, we spent 3/4 of the time we are spending it at school. So I thank God that I studied in this school. So while I was studying, I think I didn't know that I would turn out to be a farmer. And of course, remember when you're studying, you think this is punishment. You're like, oh my God, you don't like it anyway. And but so that going to my grandma every holiday and having been in this school, Stella Maris Boarding Primary School, helped me. All it kind of puts bricks into my life, farming bricks. So when I get into this challenge of like, oh, wait a minute, I need to feed my family. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I think I remember my grandma, and then I remember my school, and then I'm a vet. So I have this science, I can put these things together. So it was easy for me, maybe. It was easy for me because I'd already had this experience in my life early.
Indeed. And you've really, really shown us how your nature, as opposed to your nurture, of course. So your environment, home, you said 70% of the time is spent at school. You really being able to pull from those memories and officially start. You haven't gotten the chance to actually tell us what kind of farming that you do, or what different kinds of farming you do now, as opposed to when you first started. Where are you now?
Okay, like I said, at first it was putting food on my table. Yeah, I started with matoke and tomatoes. But along the way, I divided my farm into 4 quarters.
Okay.
So the first quarter, I put matoke. The second quarter, I put pigs. The third quarter, I put cattle, and the other quarter, I put fish and vegetables.
Wow.
Now, why did I decide, or why did I divide it in this way? After being successful, and at first it wasn't actually, we're just doing it. We didn't even know that we are doing it that way. But it's because like going to school is very, very important. You use that knowledge. So I used the knowledge of going to school, doing integrated farming, and I'm like, okay, this thing can help the other. One thing in integrated farming leads to the other. So my farm is on 1 acre. And now why I still farm on 1 acre is because when many people make money, the biggest, after buying land, the next piece of land they'll buy maybe will be on an acre, will be an acre. So you would like, and I would like to help people or to teach them that it doesn't matter how big the land is, but how you utilize your piece of land is quite important. So that is our concept. And then we go on and teach. That's why I'm saying that even if you're a teacher, even at school, you can put a bucket, you can put polythene bags. Like at school here, we have a teacher, all our teachers have now, they're farmers, they've kind of become farmers. But there's this one teacher, she's a mathematics teacher. She's called Teacher Enid, and now she's in charge of the vegetable growing. She came as a math teacher, purely math. But then she has turned into a farmer, and she's using her maths to become a farmer. You see? So she's using her math lessons to become, and then she you know, with maths, you're like, okay, between this spacing and this spacing, this is what I do. You get it? Yeah.
Wow. You've actually done a perfect job of explaining how to use what you have to multiply that and be able to actually flourish, because this is what you're teaching these people, and this is what these people have shown. For example, this teacher, this math teacher that you've told us about, she's a math teacher, but she's using her math, becoming a farmer, and in turn that's helping her. I know you've really talked a lot about how farming helped put food on the table, but did it do anything else aside from that? Because I know you split into four parts your land. I assume you don't just use the farming for subsistence now. You don't need it only for sustenance. So what else has this farming enabled you to do, and how else has it helped your family?
So now in the first quarter, like the pig quarter, that's my pigs. The pigs are my cash cow. So I end up having about $60,000 from the pigs, and
Wow.
And that's a year. Then we get about between 3,000 and 5,000 US dollars from the vegetables. Then from the fish we get about again 5,000 US dollars. But anyway, so I've managed, like I do it commercially. And then in some things I will do a value add, like with the pork, I'll make sure I sell a live pork, a live pig when it's for breeding. But if it's pork, then this is what I'll do. I'll cut it, I'll slaughter it, and then make chops, make special cuts, and then I sell them to you. So that's value addition, and I would sell them expensively. With the vegetables, because 3/4 of the time we are using farm, we are kind of organic, so we shall sell them to you as in organic vegetables, or the yellow yolk eggs. So all these help us make money. They're small pieces, but then because they are tailored into, we package them in a way that is eye-catching, and like when you say organic, and we say our word anyway, we mean our word. When we say organic, it's organic. When we say this, it's this, and quality is very important. And that's why I've said that the farm enabled us open the school.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. Wow, those are some great figures you've been able to tell us here, which gives hope for people. I know not everyone is going to start from there off the bat, but generally honing down on using what you have, even if it's just very little, and managing, using the drive, a reason. Right now, everybody's reason is sustenance during this pandemic, to be able to stay alive, to keep their families alive. So it would really help if you, as an expert in the field, of course, gave new farmers, people curious about farming, might not even be very professional, but just anybody who's interested. So new farmers, parents, and even children, recommendations that you have for them on where to start, how to start, and any other advice you can conjure up.
First of all, use professionals. I know you don't, because you need to use professionals, but even before you go to the professionals, you need to find out why. What's the reason? Right now, the reason is to put food on our tables amid this COVID, okay? Especially for the teachers who are not getting salary. We need to find ourselves useful in any way, anyway. So, and we need to make sure a teacher is, being a teacher is a very noble profession. They teach everyone, and we want them to stay teaching us. So, but they need to use their knowledge. I'll give you an example. A science teacher can use the same knowledge they use to teach the young in class, say transplanting, types of, what is it called? Types of crops. There's transplanting, there's a way, is it aerial growing? I think the learners here will tell us which types of how to grow, Is it, there's this thing of where you spray, you just throw the seed. Yeah, so these teachers can use their science to do something. And then the history teacher or the SST teacher will say, but I don't have that science. But your teacher, your science teacher is your friend in that school. Use him or her to give you this other knowledge, okay? Mm-hmm. And then the math teacher with the calculation. So we all go back to the same, we go back to the circles, and then we do something, because the science teacher at this particular time will have a lot of information about farming. And I remember in the P4 class, they even teach them how to, after farming, they even teach them how to cook. There are lessons of making matoke, making sweet potatoes, making all these things. But before, since that lesson is there, we need to learn how to prepare that. We need to learn how to grow this food before we prepare it. So we can go to these teachers if we don't have enough money to go for professionals, or we don't have enough money even to go to the next farm to learn. Let's go back to our notes, the notes of, I think it's called MK. There's a science book for P4. I think it's called MA. But there are other books as well for science. The teachers here on the page know which books to go to anyway. So yeah, they should go to that page, they should go to those teachers or to those books and read. Then internet is here as well. There's Dr. Google. Of course, Dr. Google can also be a menace sometimes, but after I've seen what Dr. Google tells you, and then you go and ask the other professional that I've seen this, what can I do here? And then, yeah, I think we can take it from there. They can start like that and continue. As time goes on, there will be better people every day.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Nalima. It's been a pleasure hearing from you, and this is definitely not the last we're going to hear from you. We're going to allow people to be able to ask questions at the later end of this segment. But for now, I'm going to mute you once again. Thank you so much for sharing. And we are going to have our next panelist here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, an expert has spoken, and it will do us good to listen to her words and her experiences. However, I too have come to learn, even as she said, that not all expertise is born of being a master of the craft for years. In some cases, it takes passion, curiosity, and dedication, and enabling anyone to become an expert, even at an early age. Agriculture is no exception. In our next segment, we shall hear from young Ugandan minds that have also taken it upon themselves to venture into this sector and reap from it as well. Our next panelist is a light for the future of agriculture in Uganda. At just 10 years old, soon to be 11, Elijah Nyinamasiko, is a primary 6 student at MST Junior School, aspiring to be an athlete, a footballer to be exact. Elijah also wants to continue with commercial farming in the future. He's one of 4 children in his household, and he enjoys playing while practicing his football technique. I would love to welcome Elijah to the floor. Elijah, would love to not only hear from you, but also see you. I'm going to unmute you. Right. Elijah, can you hear us?
Yes.
You're most welcome. You are so welcome. We're so happy to have you here, Elijah.
Okay.
Right. We as the people would love to know. I know that you've managed to tell me a little bit about what you do, but please tell the audience and everybody here today your story as a child farmer.
Okay. During the holiday of coronavirus, me and my dad wanted to begin a tomato growing, an organic tomato farm so that we can make our own tomatoes at home.
Yes.
So I told him that at school we have seedlings which we can buy. So he said that we should first get some advice from the school on how to do it. So we traveled to the school and they told us how to make the seedlings. But at first we made an earthworm project where we put food like greens and green vegetables, but we don't put any spicy food. We put like some brown box and mix in, put a little water there, and the earthworms eat and produce humus, which you can use in the farm. Yeah, so when we went to the school, they gave us 11 seedlings of tomatoes, but unfortunately, 2 died of fungal infection. So we planted the 2 and we sprayed them first with sodium bicarbonate. We mix, the measurements they gave us were 10 grams of sodium bicarbonate into 1 liter of water, into 10 liters of water. So we decided to simplify it since we don't have a 10-liter jerry can. So we divided it by 10 each. So we used 1 gram of sodium bicarbonate into 1 liter of water, which we used to spray. We spray it after every 2 weeks. So when we're doing our projects, sometimes they would want to throw away our thing thinking they were not so useful, but we continued doing it until we made our tomato farm, which is still at home. We are still progressing, as well as our earthworm farm, which is not so big, but it's fair.
Okay. I like the fact that you've gone into real detail about everything that happened. I don't know when did you start farming? I know you started within this COVID time, but when exactly? If you can recall.
July.
It's okay.
In July, we began in July.
Okay, so I'm loving the fact that you're very, very invested. When you've technically started so soon, it's only been a month and you've been looking at everything closely, you remember every single detail, which is awesome. But I want to know from you, how did you get introduced? Was it your dad? Did he know how to farm before and you just started? Did you ask an expert? Did you ask a teacher? How did you know to start tomato farming?
Before me, I used to see our father go to the village while we were doing studies. So I thought that what would he be doing while he was there? So I asked him to take us to the farm where I saw it was dry and animals were getting little water. The grass was brown and the weeds were dying. Some weeds were dying. So when we used to be in a different school, we wouldn't learn much about farming practically. So we changed the school to MST where we began learning about farming. So when I used to watch Dr. Emma do her, like there are some programs used to do. So when I watched them, I looked carefully.
Mhm.
Then Daddy took us to that school where we learn practically now how to do different things.
I like that. I like that, and I love the fact that you've mentioned Dr. Emma as well. So you really made it a point to pay attention to anything she was doing, and of course, even school teaches this to you specifically so that you learn. But your everybody's experience is going to be different. So do you only do vegetable farming right now?
Yes, we are trying to progress to different things, but we are still on earthworms and tomatoes. But
Okay.
we're trying to make our decomposite pit where we get some of the manure.
Mhm.
So we utilize the food at home. Most times when we were not yet at this school, we used to eat a lot of food and throw it away in the truck, like in the truck, we used to take it away.
Mhm.
But now we collect it and take it to rot and use it as manure.
Indeed. Wow. So I did not know you could actually farm earthworms. Thank you, Elijah, for sharing. I know you started because COVID times are they're not very fun, but how has it helped your family right now?
So far now we are not yet progressing so well, but the the food that used to be thrown around, now we pick it and
Mhm.
then throw it inside there, which
Mhm.
helps the place keep clean.
Indeed. Wow. So I really love the fact that you're very intentional with your actions. You've been kind enough to let us know what you did before and what has changed after. So before you said you used to throw away food and now it works as compost. So you're really working with what you have at home. I know you want to go into a commercial, so you just have to stick out this process. You've just started, but clearly heading in the right direction. I have all the faith in you. But for other people, say myself and anybody else watching who doesn't know anything about farming, any recommendations? Would you have any recommendations for us as well?
Yes, if you eat food like at home and it stays, you should collect it and use it as manure, or you should get small plants like onions,
Mhm.
uh, some tomatoes, because tomatoes can also make the house look beautiful. So you should collect them and use the manure instead of throwing it away, so that if you want to begin a farm, you can use that manure slowly.
Wow, that's awesome. And for anyone your age, I know you're 10, almost 11. I don't know what I was doing at 10 and 11. It certainly wasn't farming, but you are a very great example for other people. What would you want people your age to know, whether or not they have any experience farming? What would you want them to know about starting? Why they should, if they should?
Well, starting isn't easy.
Yeah.
When you're beginning, it's not so nice. You are not used to the environment of farming where you find smelly things, but you should know around the end it will be useful.
It will. It will. Thank you so much for those words, Elijah. We cannot wait to hear more from you and ask you some more questions whenever this is done. Thank you for sharing your story and those really really intentional words of yours. And hopefully we can find solutions for how to deal with these smelly places later on. I'm going to mute you just for a moment, and then we're going to proceed with the next panelist. right?
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elijah. We are so, so happy that you're here and able to join us and just give us a breath of fresh air. That breath of fresh air was much needed to hear from a younger farmer and just kind of broaden the spectrum of how possible something like this is. In the same vein, another beacon of light in the future for agriculture is our next panelist. She too is a primary six student at MST Junior School. Rebecca Chisache Bunjo is very passionate about farming. She wants to continue with farming in the future alongside the pursuit of a career in engineering. At just 11 years old as well, she enjoys community service and volunteer work and is one of six children in her household. I would love to welcome Rebecca Chisache. She's in with us, right? Rebecca, I'm going to unmute you. Can you hear us?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Good
Rebecca.
afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Chisache Rebecca. I'm glad to hear from you.
We are very happy to have you, Rebecca. So before we go any further in asking you any questions, we also want to hear your story as a child farmer.
Yes. My inspiration started in 2016 at Dr. Nalima at school, MST Junior School. Before I was in a school, I even didn't know how to mix soil for farming, how to make a nursery bed. And then my parents took me to MST in 2016. By then I was in primary 2.
Wow.
I learned how to manure, make a nursery bed, and all of the other stuff. Right now at home, we started a small scale garden. In May, we had cucumber, cabbages, onions, carrots, and green pepper. Eventually, we were taking care of them, watering, adding more manure, and we started harvesting. At home here, we no longer buy greens. We no longer buy vegetables because of the small scale garden.
Okay.
Now, the garden died last month and we started another garden last Saturday. We planted strawberry, yellow pepper, green pepper, collards, cabbages, and onions.
Wow.
We mixed lake sand, loam soil, and manure in the ratio of 1:1:1. We put in bags which were well aerated and then put our seedlings. Yes.
Wow.
Right now, they are fine and still taking care of them.
I love that. I love your honesty as well. You've shown us that not everything is just rainbows and flowers. It's not a fairy tale. Sometimes things happen. You lose your whole bed, and then you just start again. And you start again with more energy and with a smile on your face, which you've been doing excellently. I just want to know, I know these are very different things you've mentioned, strawberries, peppers, and all these things. How has it helped your family at home? Have you been able to just plant and grow these things for home use? Have you been able to sell them? How has this
No,
helped?
not only only for home use, but we also sell neighborhood.
Wow. So you've been able to turn that into an income, something that's bringing money into home and helping your family, which at 11 is very, very remarkable. I'm sure your parents are proud of you, and we as the audience are proud of you as well. I just want to know,
Yes.
as a child farmer and someone who does farming with their family, what recommendations do you have for parents in ways to encourage their children, as well as children your age, to be able to be interested in farming? Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. You did not hear my question. I asked, what recommendations do you have for parents to encourage their children to start, and for people your age to also be able to start farming?
I recommend them to start some agriculture, even if they're in a small area. They can start with like tomatoes, just like Elijah said, and go on increasing. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and that's really wise. I suppose, you start with small portions and build your way up and learn and grow. And I don't know, you told me you started with your family as well, so your parents also helped you. What advice would you give to parents who are trying to help interested children as well?
They should support them and give them what they need to care for their garden. Yes, for their nursery bed.
Thank you so, so much, Chisache, for sharing with us your story and being very candid enough to tell us the highs and lows of your experience. Of course, thank you for being blatant and showing us that really you can start from anywhere, you can grow, and starting from the beginning doesn't mean you won't succeed. You've really shown us as well that farming does both things. It puts food on the table, it also brings in money, and it doesn't matter how old you are. Dr. Emma and you are not the same age, but you're still basically doing the same thing for the same purpose, and it's working. Thank you so much, Tisache. I'm going to go ahead and mute you once again
Welcome.
for this time being, and shall allow other people to ask questions at the later segment. However, I know that right now we've had some information overload, and so I would like for us to be able to, for anybody that has a question for specifically Dr. Naruima, because she may not be with us too long in the panel. Any questions for Dr. Naruima, please feel free to raise your hand or write them in the chat so that she can be able to answer them and address them in her time here. And then you'd be able to have your heart satisfied. Should you not have any questions now and you think of something later, hopefully she'll still be around. If she's not, then we'll find a way to make that happen. However, as we wait for any questions for specifically Dr. Naluima, I shall go ahead and introduce our next panelist, who, of course, we've gotten a chance to hear from young minds, breath of fresh air, but another expert never hurts, right? As Dr. Naluima said, please listen to experts, find an expert in the sector or somebody who's had more experience ready to share. And the best thing about learning is that you can never do enough of it. There's always room to grow. And so Mr. Ronald Dungu is an education advisor at VVOP, Uganda, who in his own words believes for an agrarian country like Uganda, where over 70% of the population is employed in agriculture, it is important to support young people acquire skills in agriculture. His own words, he too has been educating as well as advising people in the agricultural sector for years, and is also passionate about teacher development towards changing our classrooms to include community service and project-based teaching combined with the use of available technologies. With that said, I would love to welcome Mr. Ronald Dungu to the panel to be able to share with us a little bit about his work and what he does. Mr. Dungu, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Jemima. Is it possible to give me co-host rights and I share my screen?
Indeed. So go ahead and do so. Okay, still waiting for that to happen. Okay, 1 minute as we work on that.
Is that?
Have you gotten the rights yet? No, not yet. Okay. Okay, we are waiting for go ahead from our technician, and then we'll be all ready to go. Okay. All right. So you should.
Okay.
You should be able to share your screen, Mr. Dungu.
Okay. I hope you are seeing my screen. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for inviting me here. It's always a pleasure speaking to either teachers or people who are concerned with the plight of teachers. My name is Ronald Dungu, as indicated. I'm a teacher of physics and maths. I'm not a teacher of agriculture, and I enjoy being in the company of experts like Dr. Naluima and the young children you've had, because they bring out the details of agriculture. But listening to those young people and the science running through their mind, every other parent would love that. And for me, that is the baseline. That is the most important factor here. So looking at our situation now, looking at COVID, everybody knows what has happened to our schools. Everybody knows that our teachers are not getting salary as they used to, and therefore they're buying less food in their homes, which means that the children might be eating less than usual. And this could lead us to many other health challenges, but most importantly, undesired behavior. I can imagine in the villages where the parents cannot provide enough and the children are roaming around looking for what to eat or to have enough, they can actually get into quite a number of problems. I just want to share with you my personal experience, but I can also relate to what is happening to you. If you took your pen and paper and you just looked at your expenditure for a week, this is my home expenditure. We are a family of 9, 3 adults and 6 teenagers. And this is just part of what I have to spend on a weekly basis. I would like to request someone could draw their own budget and we compare to see what it is in your own home. But if you've got to have all these foods, you have to have tomatoes, green pepper, eggplants, onions, carrots, name it. You will find that for me in particular, my weekly expenditure would be 63,000, my monthly expenditure would be 250, 2,000, and my annual expenditure is over 3 million shillings. But when you compare that with our monthly income, the percentage of expenditure that is going to this half of my food expenditure would really be high. And that definitely pushed me to move out of the market and try to do something about it. So I was quick to decide that the gumboots and the hoe and learning how to do it should become part and parcel of me. I now have my garden of matoke, so then it means I cannot go to the market to buy. I don't even know, as Dr. Nadma said, I don't know when I last visited the market to buy matoke. But I've also gone ahead to learn quite a number of things, and I could get involved in so much. During COVID, this was my situation in one of my gardens, and I was forced to go to the market to see that I sell off the excess. I want to tell you the experience, first of all, was not good. A box of tomatoes that was going for 300,000 before, now was going for 80,000. So I decided to pack the tomatoes and support my colleagues, the teachers in a nearby school. And for me, that was more refreshing than selling it at 80,000 in the market. So what this also means, as we get into agriculture, let us not over-expand before even we know where the market sits and how the market works. But also, we could be able to support other families in one way or another. This is my family on one of those good days when we are coming from the farm and we have carried everything we can from the farm and everybody is getting busy, working. By the time these beans get to the plate, the children have learned a lot, but they also know that we have to keep it, we don't have to waste the food, but also they know where the food comes from.
Indeed.
I do a bit of crop and animal, and what is important for me is to learn how to apply scientific approaches. I liked the little children, the young children, they were talking a lot of science. So we need to learn to use science in agriculture so that we improve the production that we work on. This is my home. On the extreme left, those are my local chicken in those baskets. In the middle, that is the bigger house that came up as the chicken began to increase in number. And on top, I think you can even hear they are nailing certain parts of this. That is where I'm headed. So start small and grow your passion. You may not be able to grow your passion in many things, but what you are most passionate about, and it will take you time. You don't have to rush through it. So what is the way forward for us as teachers? Let us learn as a team. Let us learn together. In the past, since 2014, we've been organizing annual teacher and student farm camps. And I will throw those links into the chat so that some people can look at them later. But from 2014 to today, we have galvanized our energies as teachers to learn together, to learn along, to use the experts so that we can all be able to do something in our families, but also beyond our families. As we learn, we also need to work together. There is an opportunity for you as teachers at the school level to start group projects. This is one of our teachers' garden we set up at Gayaza High School. It was launched in 2015 by the permanent secretary. It has the teachers' garden, but also has the students' garden. And we started a slogan, one plant for each student and one plant for each teacher. Of course, all of us have learned quite a lot out of this experience. And many teachers and many students have gone home to start their own gardens. So what I want to say here, we can learn as a group in that school. We can ask the head teacher to give us a piece of land. We can do something together. And then when we learn, we go out to our different homes to replicate or do something different. These are teachers I can single out. On the extreme left is Mr. Kanike's farm. He's a poultry farmer. He uses the cage system. He's a mathematics, physics teacher in Zambia. We now use his farm as a study area. We organize teacher trips to him, and he teaches us how he does it. But most importantly, he tells us how we can integrate this within our own curriculum, such that as you teach that mathematics topic, or as you teach that English lesson, and you are referring to your own farm, then you are not doing anything separate from what you do at home. For example, we can take probably weekly production, and we can draw a graph in mathematics on the progress of a farm. And if you are using your own example, it means even the time you are in school, you are actually working on your project. In the middle is Mr. Chibuka's poultry farm. Mr. Chibuka is a teacher in Gayaza School, an economics teacher. And from the learnings he took as we visited different farmers, he has decided to go into poultry. And right now, his farm is producing eggs. But he can tell you, and I will put a link in the chat, a video we've recorded of Mr. Chibuka when he's sharing how he's ready after COVID to begin integrating his knowledge or his farm within his economics lessons. On the extreme right, that is Mr. Chebet Milton. He's a biology teacher. He gave me this picture just this week. He was opening up his garden, and you can see how happy he is. You can see he was relaxing on this tractor, so he's getting to know more about even the tractor. But he's planning for his family. He's planning to do things in a better way. So I want to imagine that teachers, say in poultry farming, can form a circle. They can own equipment. They can do value addition, so that we start to see teachers across the country, even marketing their products beyond regions. The parents and students are our market. If you are teaching using your project in class, you deliver your content in a meaningful and interesting way. The students and the parents will definitely want to know more. And most importantly, they might become your market. We need to engage policy in schools such that the schools can accept to buy from teachers and encourage teachers to do more. I think agriculture education should target all the teachers, because the important thing is those students, those youngsters you've had speaking, that is the product we must be bringing out in future. And for me, agriculture has to be brought in from all angles. It doesn't have to be just the science teacher. Dr. Nalima brought it well, and we love MS Junior Academy for the work they're doing, because they're giving us a glimpse of what education should be in this country. She talked a lot about curriculum integration and project-based learning. On the extreme left, that is Mr. Chibuka, our farmer, and we had visited him, mathematics teachers, to learn from him, but we are also recording his story, which story you can access on YouTube. On the right, that is Grace. Grace is a head teacher of Ngora Girls. She sent me this picture this week, and they were coming family, and I think some are community people from the garden, and they're showing off onions. You can imagine you can have 1 or 10 or 20 within your homestead, and you can imagine how these little pots can transform your life at home. So what are the advantages of having food security at the homestead level? It creates financial saving, and income is shifted to other needs, like you had Dr. Nalima talking about other needs for the baby. But it also creates a new income stream and increases resilience of our teachers. Most importantly, teachers become role models in communities, hence raising the status quo of teachers. This morning, I just attended an event at the Prime Minister's office where they were releasing results for primary teachers' colleges. And they were launching a national institute that is going to be concerned with teacher professional development. But Honorable Jesse Muyengo, the State Minister for Higher Education, did say that at one time, the teachers in our villages, in our communities, were role models, and everybody looked up to them to give direction to the community. Today, it's not the case. I think through this, teachers can become role models once again in our communities, and the status quo of our teachers will be raised. Curriculum integration is key, and this brings about relevant education. The education in our schools is seemingly not relevant because it is not helping the children, it's not helping the parents. Take a child who lives home and joins primary 1 in that school. After day 1, when the child goes back home, what does the child have to say at home? But if the child met this English language teacher and they took a walk to the garden and they picked this fruit and the other fruit and they learned about how to grow this, how to grow that, and they wrote a composition out of that. That is the story the child is going to take home. And the child will tell the parents, we must grow this, we must have this, because the teacher wants me to write about a story from home. That's how we are going to be relevant as teachers in this country. I want to end with this picture. I love this picture. I have 2 teachers here from Kenya who had visited us, and we were moving around with other Ugandan teachers. And we had just finished a session of milking at Gayaza School. We had used machine milking and manual milking. And it was exciting that we were experiencing 2 kinds of milking styles. But that tells you how yearning teachers are to learn, to be able to do things differently. So I'm more than sure ICON is here to support teachers, and please help our teachers, galvanize them into groups, teach them, give them exposure visits at Dr. Nalima's farm and other farms, support them so that we see them change their lifestyles, but also the way they deliver their curriculum in schools. I want to thank you for listening.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Dungu. We really appreciate that. That was a very in-depth presentation that you gave us just now, and you've covered all the bases really of anything I could have possibly asked you. Thank you very much for being candid and honest, and even engaging to an extent with everything that you've shown us, giving us visuals into what it is like doing what you're doing and all the recommendations that you've given. As I said, you've basically covered all the bases, and now I don't really have to spend any time taking away from any curious people in the audience. And so I shall go ahead and mute you for now, but really, I want to first thank every single one of our panelists for sharing with us today. We really appreciate everything that you have been doing, everything that you've done in this time, all the people that you've reached out to, teaching them, teaching us even today. And so I would love to open up the floor now for questions. Once again, for those asking, please let's be respectful in the way that we do. Let us be precise and concise to ensure everyone has a chance to speak and be responded to. So you can either write your question in the comments section, both here and on Facebook, or you can raise your hand and I shall unmute you and you can verbally ask your question. Indeed. Right. Any questions for us? There's a lot of engaging comments happening in the chats. I encourage the panelists to go and check out the chat, because in the chat, they're showing you love, as they should. You've done so much for us. And so as we wait for any more questions, let them show us. Let's go ahead and engage with some people. Right. I suppose we don't really have any questions. Wow, would you look at that? Indeed. All right. So we have a couple of questions coming in just now. So one person actually asked that they've just come in, will there be an opportunity to get what they missed? And yes, this is currently being recorded on Facebook Live. So whenever this segment is done, whenever this dialogue is done, you could always go to our Facebook page, so Icon Enterprise Foundation, and be able to watch back the recorded Facebook Live. All right, Mr. Dungu, you have a question being addressed to you. And the question is, what advice do you have for young families and teachers who do not own land?
Thank you. I think there is a lot of science for urban farming now. And what we need to do is to learn about what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
I am not personally an expert for agricultural science, but I've learned that we can actually use sacks to grow vegetables. We can do vertical gardens, okay? Getting wood and then making vertical gardens. The young person taught us how to make soil, good soil. So then we can always be able to grow. So you may not grow matoke because maybe your piece of land does not allow that, or your place does not allow that. But at least you can have vegetables. And what is important now is reduce on the expenditure on food. The expenditure on food within our families, maybe most people don't sit down to calculate it and compute it over a month, compute it over a year. It's quite a lot of money that can go into other things. Okay? But when you visit Dr. Naluima's place, they can demonstrate quite a number of ways in which one can do urban farming.
Oh, just checking on a couple of more questions coming in from the Facebook side. Right now, you just have love being shown to you in the comment section. All right, well, I'm going to give a little more time to anybody else that might have questions, be it here or on our Facebook page. Just to correct myself, for the person that asked if they can find this anywhere else, it will not just be on the Facebook page. There shall also be a copy of the video uploaded onto YouTube. Yes, so for those that are really looking for ICON's social media, we have our Facebook page, we have YouTube, we have Twitter and Instagram, of course, and all of these are under ICON Enterprise Foundation or icon__EF. Okay. Well, if nobody has any more questions, I'm under the impression that the panelists did an amazing job, which you have. I really have to thank you for being as in-depth as possible and wholesome. You've managed to cover every single base that I could possibly ask, and I suppose everybody else. I do wonder though, Mr. Dungu, how can we get teachers to be interested in farming?
That has always looked difficult because teachers are always within their classrooms. Teachers have been told to work with their textbook in the old-fashioned way. So we need to do, first of all, a lot of exposure for teachers. The theory of change that we work with, that I believe in most of the time, is a theory that says people can only change when they see where you want them to go. For example, I mentioned about the banana garden we set up at Gayaza School. We were good and lucky to convince the teachers to go and dig the holes and plant the banana suckers. But then it became very difficult to get them back to keep weeding and keep looking after the garden. So what I told my farm manager and other friends is that we need to work and raise this garden until the time when we invite teachers to pick the fruits, to pick the matoke. When they enjoy the matoke, they will now think about the next time they will get matoke, so they will have to come now and look after the garden. So that is a good example of, if you want to change teachers, you need to walk them up to where you want them to be. They must see it, they must visualize it. Visualizing it is either enabling them to walk the journey or take them for exposure visits or bring people to share with them their stories and show them what is good about it. Luckily enough, and I use the word luckily enough in context, COVID has been able to open the eyes and minds of teachers. I'm more than sure they're going to be more passionate about the stories we've been sharing. But otherwise, we have set up different WhatsApp groups for teachers. We encourage people to share what they are doing. We organize trainings and workshops for teachers. And our strategy is work with those who are ready to go until when they get to a product, because teachers want to see their fellow teachers do it. If you take them to another person, they will say, oh, that person was able to do it. But when they see the teacher, their own, the person in their context, then they are able to change. So it is a slow process with teachers. We are hoping it is going to be faster. Now, what is important for us is to get all those stakeholders who are willing to support teachers to move in with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of support and help, such that we catch the teachers before they lose the steam for wanting to learn immediately after COVID.
Thank you very, very much once again, Mr. Dungu. Thank you so much for sharing and of course giving us an in-depth analysis of ways we can make sure that we engage our teachers and have them also jump onto this wave that isn't really a wave. As you've said, of course, Uganda is an agrarian country, and if anyone is looking to sustain themselves, there is no better way. Thank you once again. I don't see any questions for you here. That's awesome. You've done an amazing job.
But can I also add that somehow everyone retires in agriculture? And if people are willing to retire in agriculture, why don't they start now?
Indeed.
So look at those youngsters beginning at that stage. I think that is wonderful.
Indeed.
Teacher is most suited to do that for the youngsters. So we need to find all the support. We need to engage all the stakeholders possible so that they focus on the teacher and they support the teacher.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's allow even these youngsters you've mentioned. We have Elijah, we have Rebecca Chisache. If they have any last words, please feel free to share with us. We have some knowledge being imparted in our Zoom group chat right here, especially from Shirina. Thank you so much for sharing, I believe. Wow, indeed. Elijah, do you have any last words for us? Rebecca, do you have any last words for us? All right. I believe Shirina had a statement to say. I can let Shirina go ahead and speak. Shirina, I'm unmuting your mic. I see you have some kind words from Mr. Dungu. Unmuted your mic. I've unmuted your mic. If it's not unmuted, please feel free to unmute it yourself. Because we have some nice information coming in from you. All right, looks like we're unable to reach her. Okay, looks like Sharina mic is failed.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, of course, I'm late, and so I've mainly listened to Mr. Dungu, and I'm very grateful. So many years ago, I was in Gaza High School, and yes, you remember Mr. Dungu putting together, being very, very instrumental at the farm. But I like how he presents his points of whatever it takes, the teachers can be able to walk with someone to hold them on the hand, because it's one thing for us to look up to the teachers, like they've been the imparters of knowledge. We look up to them, they help us. They're in their element in the classroom, but in the garden, it's another story. And in this season, more especially, the ground is level, whether you're a teacher, you're a child, you're a parent, everyone in the garden can be, can be a farmer, can be able to do something. You get your harvest, you put it out there, and it will be relevant. Everyone will be willing to buy what you have. So I'm really grateful for the example that Mr. Dungu gives. And it inspires all of us to be willing and ready to start. No one will say, you're failing at this. No. Whatever you do, you just know that any day you're ready to do something about the garden, do something about the garden, you'll be better, you'll be better, you'll be better. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much for sharing with us, Shamina. I would love for Elijah, yes, Elijah.
Hello?
Just say hello.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Elijah, loud and clear.
Okay, I would like to say that we should try to integrate farming to, like, you use cows to make manure for plants, and also use you can make earthworms, use the earthworms to help like the chicken in terms of feeds, to keep you use the farm to help the farm.
I really like what Elijah is talking about, because that is scientific farming.
Mm-hmm.
And why our people in the villages or in agriculture have remained with low production is the lack of science. And science is resident within our schools, within our curriculum. What is important is for us, the teachers, to learn this science and bring it to the children so that the children practice it while in school. And then the children can reach all areas of our communities as they go back to the villages and take this science with them. So it is very critical for us to engage the teachers and they learn about this science and how the science works. You have one cow. That cow could actually translate into, the waste can translate into bioslurry, and you get biogas for cooking, but then you get bioslurry into the maize garden. Then in the maize garden, you grow maize, and then you make silage and come back and feed the cow. You get more milk. So this kind of science is not with our farmers, but the science is resident either within the books or within some experts, like the Dr. Naluimas. So we need to expose our teachers to the experts and then encourage the teachers to take that science within their classroom so that the students can pick it from the teacher. And interestingly, the children say, my teacher said. I know Sherina now remembers me very well, probably, and many of her teachers. And maybe we had an impact on her. So if we do a good job with the children, then the future is bright, but also the change of practices within our communities will be quick and fast.
Thank you very much, Elijah. Thank you very much, Mr. Dungu. We have a technical glitch, and Jemima has requested me to take over briefly. And at this juncture, I believe we are just waiting for some last, closing remarks and advice from Rebecca. Rebecca, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear him.
Okay. So we cannot see you, Rebecca, but we just need some closing remarks from you. And Jemima is trying to get back on. She just requested me to help her. Sorry about that technical glitch.
I advise people to do not lose hope. We'll get out of this situation, but please don't be afraid to start, even if it is a small area. You can start with only vegetables and you go on increasing and sell, do nursery beds. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Rebecca, for that advice. And I'm definitely going to come and learn a thing or two from you. Mr. Dungo, we are definitely coming. And of course, we know you're our resource persons at ICON with our groups. But I, as an individual, will definitely come to you, Mr. Dungo and Rebecca and Elijah. And I can see Jemima is back, so I hand over the mic to Jemima. Welcome back, Jemima.
Jemima, your microphone is not mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dungu. I sincerely apologize. I had some technical difficulties, but now I am back. I'm sorry to have missed what Rebecca Chisache was telling us about. Of course, I'm sure she gave us some more wise words, some nuggets and encouragement moving forward. I myself have definitely learned a lot. And hopefully everybody else has in the time that we have. Anybody who wasn't able to make it in time, once again, we have our Facebook page that will have the Facebook Live, as well as the YouTube channel that will also have the video uploaded of this whole segment on and present. I believe everybody has already said their last words, even though I unfortunately missed them. I don't see any more questions coming in, just love and comments. And as our panelists, you definitely deserve all that. I would love to thank you once again for making time, everybody who has attended, our panelists most especially for making the time, even Dr. Naluima, who's no longer with us in the Zoom call, imparted very great knowledge upon us. And with that said, I would love to allow for this session, this family dialogue, the August family dialogue, to come to an end. Unfortunately, it's been so much fun hearing from everybody. Thank you so much to our audience for being engaging and loving on our panelists. And if anybody needs to check out ICON's social media, once again, we have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube page, and Twitter, just for updates on both the next panel and all our work that we're doing with our partners as well, with any new panelists and old. We really do appreciate everybody staying in touch. And without further ado, this panel's come to an end.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.